All right, welcome back to another video. So I guess we're switching it up a little bit. We're still in the topic of UFC, obviously. So to deviate away from the matchmakings and the predictions, I figured I can just talk about the top three greatest of all time in each division. So this is just based off of my own preference, and I have set my own criteria, I guess. Um, Obviously, everyone else could have their own preferences and their own list, but this is just my own personal list, so it could be controversial. I'm not sure, but let's just get straight into it. We got flyweight. So with flyweight, I believe from 1 to 2 to 3, Demetrius Johnson, Alexander Pantoja, and then Davison Figueiredo. I think everyone could agree that Demetrius Johnson is the GOAT. Like, this is not even debatable. But when it comes to the second and the third, specifically the third, I think some people would have Henry Cejudo above Davison Figueiredo, but the reason why I have Figueiredo up here above Cejudo is the fact that Cejudo barely had any elite wins at flyweight. I know he beat DJ, right? And who did he also beat? Let me check. But he does. But my point is that he doesn't have the longevity as someone like Davison Figueiredo did, right? He doesn't have the same longevity. He doesn't have, as many good wins as Davison Figueiredo. I would say that yes, Cejudo probably has, like, if you would compare their best win, Cejudo's best win is better than Figgy's best win. But that's not how I'm gonna rank it. Like, you look at Henry Cejudo, he has beaten Demetrius Johnson at flyweight and TJ Dillashaw, which was a good win, but that's pretty much it. And I guess maybe you could include Sergio Pettis. So TJ and DJ. I don't know if I could just put him at number three based off of those two wins, which are great wins. Don't get me wrong, DJ was obviously coming off that massive win streak. He was in his prime. And by the way, that win was still controversial, so that adds on to it. That plays a factor. But when you compare it to Davison Figueiredo, he has more wins at flyweight. He may not have as good of wins, but he still has a lot of good wins at flyweight. He has the longevity. Like, let's see, for example, he has Alexander Pantoja, which has aged really, really well. He has Tim Elliott, Joseph Benavidez, Alex Perez, Brandon Moreno. Listen, he has the longevity over Henry Cejudo. Henry really has like only two above average wins at flyweight. It's still debatable, but I would say that Figgy is above what's his name? Henry Cejudo. And to top it all off is that Figgy is a two-time flyweight champion. Meanwhile, Cejudo is a one-time champion, so that's why I have him at number three above Cejudo. Pantoja, I don't think this is that debatable. He had 4 title defenses as a champ, and he didn't really lose his belt legitimately, right? Like, he lost to Joshua Van, but he injured his elbow in the first round. He didn't legitimately love that fight. I don't know why they cannot just turn that into a no contest and just have Pantoja retain the belt and instead have Van fight Tatsuro Taira for an interim belt, considering that Pantoja is going to be out for a while because of the injured elbow. I think he's back in the gym, if I'm not mistaken, but I just don't understand how Joshua Van could win the belt off of that. It just doesn't make sense to me. I know it's not Van's fault, but it's not Pantoja's either. So that fight should have just been a no contest or something, or a draw. And he should have just retained the belt. It's not like he did that on purpose. It's not like he just deliberately threw that head kick knowing that he was going to land on his elbow in a weird, awkward fashion and then just break his elbow. Like, it just doesn't make sense. But Pantoja has cleared out the division. He has wins over guys like Manil Cap, aged well. He's like the number 2 ranked guy in the division. He has wins over Brandon Moreno 3 times, I believe. Same thing with Royval. I think he beat Royval twice. Moreno 3 times. He beat Manil Cap, Alex Perez, Kaya Sakura, Kai Kara France, Steve Urzeg. What's unlucky about Pantoja is that when he was reigning over the division, it's like there were no contenders for him to fight, so much so that the UFC really were forced to just, think outside the box, and they brought in people like Kaya Sakura from Ryzen in his debut to fight Pantoja for the belt. But now, ever since he lost the belt, you have people like Loner Kavanagh, Kyoji Horiguchi, Taira, Manil Cap. All of them are in the top 5, top 6, range, which sucks for Pantoja because he was looking for those tough matchups that he could test himself against. But, let's hope that he could come back as soon as possible and get the winner of Joshua Van versus Taira. And I think he probably will become a champion again. Hopefully he doesn't look too changed or anything like that. And And then the number one is obviously DJ. This is no debate. 11 title defenses. Established his dominance in the division for so many years. Lost to Henry Cejudo, but then, that loss wasn't that convincing, right? Like, in his prime, he really hasn't lost to anybody. I know he lost to Dominic Cruz, but that was back in 2011, before he hit his prime. And in his prime, he only lost to Cejudo, but that was a very controversial loss. And then obviously he went over to ONE FC, got knocked out by Adriano Moraes, but then he eventually lost twice. So that's my personal list for flyweight. Moving on to bantamweight, we got Merab at number 1, Jan number 2, and Dominic Cruz number 3. I was going to include Aljamain Sterling on this list, but the reason why I don't have him on this list is because of the way he won the belt off of Jan. It's like, at least those 3 guys that are on the screen right now, they won their belts legitimately. Like, they had to actually earn it, and they put on good performances, to become champions, to earn the belt. Whereas with Aljamain Sterling, he was getting beat up and schooled by Jan, and then he took the easy way out and just accepted that DQ victory. Now, I'm not saying he wasn't hurt by that illegal knee. He definitely was hurt. That looked painful, but it's just like the way he won the belt and the title defenses. In hindsight, it looks good, and it is good, but I don't rate it that highly, so much so that he's now in the top 3 greatest of all time in the bantamweight division. Like, Henry Cejudo was coming off a 3-year layoff and almost beat him. TJ Dillashaw was out of his prime, washed, should have lost to Corey Sandhagen. That Petr Yan rematch was super close. It's like, and then he eventually got knocked out in his prime by Sean O'Malley of all people, who was a big underdog in that fight. So, and I know Dominic Cruz also lost to Cody Garbrandt, but he didn't get knocked out, He did lose convincingly, and that was Dominic Cruz in his prime, but I don't know. I think I value Dominic Cruz's longevity and his title defenses and, him establishing his, dominance in that division more so than what I value what Aljamain Sterling has done in the division, So that's the reason why I don't have Aljamain Sterling in the top 3. And then when it comes to Petr Yan, he's like probably a win or 2 away, in my opinion, from becoming the GOAT at bantamweight. Like, he has, I believe, 6 elite wins or something like that. He has beaten Jose Aldo. He has beaten, Uriah Faber. He has beaten Corey Sandhagen, Song Yadong, Davison Figueiredo. I guess you could throw in a Marcus McGee, which was a risky fight for him to take because he was like in the top 3, top 4. And then he just decided to take a fight against the guy that was like at the bottom of the top 15 rankings. The last time he did that, which was against Sean O'Malley, he lost. So, props to him for taking that sort of fight again, but he eventually obviously schooled Marcus McGee. And then his best win, obviously, he beat Merab Dvalishvili, who's the GOAT at bantamweight. This is no debate. Merab, with the amount of title defenses, the activity, the amount of champions that he has beaten, Sean O'Malley, Henry Cejudo, Jan, Aldo, and then the extra wins over people like Sandhagen and Umar is just like, it is just too much, right? Like, he may not have 5 title defenses to match Dominic Cruz, but like, I think it's more than good enough to surpass him and Jan. And I think he had like 4 title fights last year. He fought Umar in January of 2025. Then he fought O'Malley in June. Then Sandhagen in October. And then Jan, which he lost that fight in December. But then again, even though he lost in an upset, it wasn't like a humiliating loss, right? Like, it was a very great fight to watch. One of the best fights in bantamweight history, in my opinion, so there's no shame in that. There's no shame in losing to Jan, who I think is personally could be in the top 5 most skilled fighters of all time. If we're just solely looking at skill and talent and versatility, I think Jan could possibly be in the top 5. But that's my personal list for bantamweight. Moving on to featherweight. We got Volk, Alexander Volkanovski, Max Holloway, and Jose Aldo. Some people will have Jose Aldo as number 1. I don't know why. I guess the only reason they would do that is because they're just like nostalgic old heads. Those are the only people that would put Jose Aldo at number 1. Either they're nostalgic old heads or they just want to be hardcore. Because Jose Aldo lost to Holloway twice, and he lost to Volk once. How is he going to be above them, right? You're going to tell me, okay, because of the title defenses, he had like, I think, 7 or 9 or something like that. Yeah, back when the featherweight division was not in its strongest era. Like, we're talking in the early days of the UFC, back when it was called WEC, right? He was defending his belt against guys that some of them also lost to Volkanovski. But when you compare it to Volkanovski, He's a two-time champ, right? Compared to Aldo, who I think is technically a two-time champion as well, but the second time he became an undisputed champion, he didn't really become a champion. I think he beat Frankie Edgar for the interim belt, but then Conor McGregor had to vacate. So technically, Aldo obviously got promoted to the undisputed champion. But Volkanovski was coming off knockout losses to Islam Makhachev and Ilya Topuria, back-to-back brutal losses, and then came back a year later at like 35, 36 years old, picked a tough, dangerous, up-and-coming, young, hungry contender who had all the momentum, who was dangerous on the feet, knockout threat in Diego Lopez, and still beat him. And he didn't beat him by fighting on the outside, making it boring, stinking the place. He went toe-to-toe with him. He traded with him inside, in the pocket, basically, right? And he somehow won the belt. That's just how great Volkanovski is. When you talk about his title defenses, he has beaten Holloway 3 times, Brian Ortega, Yair Rodriguez, Chad Mendez, Jose Aldo. It's just, Diego Lopez twice. I think it's more than enough to label him as the GOAT. And as with Holloway, it's like he's still doing relatively good. I know he's no longer at featherweight, but he has done so many good things at featherweight. He has beaten Aldo. He was a former champion. I just think that they're both greater than Aldo, man. And it's not Aldo's fault that he was a part of like a weak era in the featherweight division. I think Aldo is still, in his prime would be the majority of the featherweights, but it is what it is, right? Like, it's not his fault, but it's just the fact that these two others have better resumes than him. So Volk number 1, Holloway 2, Aldo number 3. Moving on to lightweight, we got Islam Makhachev at number 1, Khabib Nurmagomedov at number 2, and Charles Oliveira at number 3. I think, listen, a lot of people, they still have Khabib as the GOAT. I think you need to move on, bro. I think you just need to move on and accept the fact that Islam, although he's no longer at 155, he is still the GOAT at 155. He has 4 title defenses, and if you compare both of their journeys leading up towards the title, and even if you include their title reigns, Islam had the better run, right? Islam just had the better run. Like, Khabib had to beat Isla Quinta. I know he was a short notice opponent. It was supposed to originally be Tony Ferguson, then Holloway, but then Isla Quinta stepped in. Islam Makhachev beat Charles Oliveira in his prime by submission to become a champion. It's night and day. Like, Khabib went the distance with Isla Quinta to win the belt. Islam Makhachev was coming off short notice wins against people like Dan Hooker and Bobby Green, easy wins. And then he had this massive step up in competition to fight Charles Oliveira in his prime with that long win streak that he had of 11 wins or something. And I personally thought that Oliveira was going to finish him, but he proved me wrong. He submitted Oliveira. He beat him using his own game, right? And then when you talk about the title defenses, obviously Khabib has McGregor, and then he has Dustin Poirier and Justin Gaethje. Islam also has Dustin Poirier, but he has Volkanovski. I feel like that's a much better win to have, especially that first fight. That's a much better win to have than McGregor or even Justin Gaethje, who are all known to be one-dimensional. I know Justin Gaethje can wrestle a little bit. I think Dustin Poirier is a BJJ black belt, but let's be real, that doesn't matter inside the octagon at the highest level in the UFC when they are just purely striking in every single fight. And when you have someone like Khabib, who is just on another level of wrestling and grappling, they just couldn't handle that. But when it comes to Islam, he fought Volkanovski, who is one of the most well-rounded guys in the history of the UFC, not even just in the featherweight division, in the history of the UFC. He could do it all. And he still went out there in enemy territory and beat him and snapped his 20-fight-something win streak. And he was also the number 1 pound-for-pound guy. I'm not trying to degrade Khabib's resume. I'm just saying that Islam's is better. And on top of that, he has 4 title defenses. I know the Moicano one, people don't rate him as highly, but again, that's not Islam's fault. It was supposed to be Arman Tsarukyan. Moicano stepped in on 1-day notice. And also, even if it's Moicano, who does that to Moicano? Who just walks through Moicano in the first round and submits him? Nobody does that. Islam did that, and that was a very good version of Moicano, right? He was coming off wins against people like Benoit Saint Denis. That win has aged really, really well. He was coming off one against Jalen Turner and I think someone else as well. I forgot his name. But again, 4 title defenses to 3. better title wins, better performances. I mean, listen, Habib, he has the dominance, he's undefeated, but again, Islam just has the better resume and the better career and the better title reign at 155 than Habib. That's why I think he's number one, Habib number two, and Oliveira number three. Oliveira could definitely surpass Habib now that Habib has been retired for like 6 years now. Like Oliveira is approaching that second spot, right? Like he just beat Holloway and Gamrot. If he beats Saryukian, I think he could potentially become the second greatest lightweight. If his next fight is against Saryukian and he beats him, I think he becomes the second greatest because we have to move on from these guys that are retired. They will not just be at the top forever. You know, Habib has been retired for 6 years now. He cannot just stay at the top. He was the number one GOAT at lightweight for a while, but now Islam Makhachev came in, Oliveira came in. So it's like, you know, the scene moves on from you, the sport moves on from you. So that's why I have Islam number one, Habib number two, and Oliveira number three. Then we move on to welterweight. GSP number one, I think everyone can agree with that. The title defense. I also think he's the GOAT. I don't think he's just the welterweight GOAT. I think he's the greatest of all time. The title defenses, only lost twice to Matt Serra and Matt Hughes, avenged both of them. Avenged the Matt Hughes, lost twice. He beat him twice after he lost to him. All of the wins that he had, he's like almost a perfect fighter, but it's just that little flaw within his resume of him losing to Matt Serra and Matt Hughes and also the controversial win over Johnny Hendricks. But I think he is still much greater than someone like Kamaru Usman. Kamaru is great. He had like 5 title defenses, one-time UFC welterweight champion, but his resume, it's not like GSP. I mean, you're talking about Masvidal twice, Gilbert Burns, Covington twice. That's pretty much his resume. I would argue his best win is still Tyron Woodley. Some people say it's like the Colby Covington fight. It's still Tyron Woodley. In my opinion, he was the champion. He hasn't been defeated like in a while. And Kamaru Usman goes out there and just dominates him. And when you talk about his title defenses, as I said, Masvidal twice. It's like, really? Covington twice. Gilbert Burns. It's like those wins have not aged well, I guess you could say. And then he obviously got knocked out by Leon Edwards, massive upset, lost the trilogy. And then he moved up a weight class. That doesn't really count because that's at middleweight. But then he came back after like a long break and beat Joaquin Buckley, which was impressive. Buckley was coming off so many good wins. Stephen Thompson, Colby Covington, he had the momentum. He was up and coming, hungry. And Usman was looked at as the guy that's like being sacrificed to the young wolves and stuff like that. But he managed to just defy the odds, and he beat Joaquin Buckley in the way that he did. I think he's number two. I don't think anyone will surpass him right now. Then you have Leon Edwards at number three. I know the disrespect is crazy nowadays for Leon Edwards because he's been getting knocked out. I mean, he got knocked out by Carlos Prates, submitted by Brady, and then decision by Bilal. But those are the best of the best, you know. And if you look, beyond those losses, those are only just 3 losses. You're talking about the win over Kamaru Usman, Colby Covington, Nate Diaz. I know that's not the greatest win, but you get what I'm trying to say. Like, he had so many good wins at welterweight that I just don't know who would be able to surpass him. I think Islam Makhachev, if he gets like a couple of more wins, maybe like 2 wins, 3, he could potentially surpass Leon. Maybe even Usman, depending on who he fights next. But I think for now, Leon still has a good enough resume to be in the top 3. Some would say it's Matt Hughes. Some would say it's Tyron Woodley. I still think it's Leon Edwards. That knockout win over Usman, you should remember that that's a crazy, crazy win. I believe Usman was the number 1 pound-for-pound guy as well, so it's like you have to rate him highly. Anyways, we move on to middleweight. We have number 1, Anderson Silva, number 2, Israel Adesanya, and number 3, Dricus du Plessis. I was tempted to put Israel Adesanya at number 1 because I thought that he had fought the better opponents. And to be fair, I mean, he did beat Alex Pereira and Whitaker and, Yoel Romero and Paulo Costa, who I think those guys would probably wipe out all of Silva's opponents that he beat, like the majority of them at least. But I realized that Silva and Izzy have both fought the same amount of champions, I believe, like 2 or something. Like, Izzy has beaten Pereira, who was the champion at the time. He beat Whitaker to unify the belts and become undisputed, and I think that's pretty much it. And he also beat Silva himself, I guess, yeah. But I think Silva's the GOAT. Actually, I don't even know if he is. Is he actually the GOAT? Now I'm having second thoughts. Now that I'm actually arguing with myself and just listing down the points, is it him or is it Izzy? Dricus is number 3. I'm not gonna change his spot. I don't think he's like number 4, number 5. I don't think Chimaev is greater than him because he beat him. Chimaev has done practically like he has beaten Whitaker and Usman and Dricus himself, but he needs more than that. Dricus has always been at middleweight. He beat Strickland twice, who's now fighting for the belt. And if he beats Chimaev and becomes the champion, that will make Dricus' win over Strickland look a lot better. He has the win over Izzy, Whitaker, upset win, Derek Brunson, so many more other wins. But I just don't know if Izzy's number 2 and Silva's number 1. And the only reason I say that is because of Anderson Silva's losses. Ever since he lost to Weidman, he only had one fight, and that was to Derek Brunson. And he lost every single other fight. Uriah Hall, Cannonier, Izzy, so many more people. It's like, DC, up a weight class. It's like, I know those guys aren't bums, but I'm just saying, like, it's just too many losses that I can't skip over. And for Izzy, he's coming off losses too. I mean, Dricus was the champ. Strickland went on to become the champ. Imavov is the number 1 contender or the number 2 contender. And then the Joe Pyfer loss is like the worst loss, I would say, because Joe Pyfer was like number 14 or something like that. But I don't know. I'm not sure. You know what? Let's just keep Silva for now, just because he had like 11 title defenses. And he was just too dominant, too slick, too skilled, looked unstoppable, right? And with Izzy, it's like he did lose in his prime as well. And I feel as though that, like, I don't know which is more humiliating. Silva losing to Weidman because he was showboating, and that was during his prime days or prime years, or Izzy losing to Strickland in the way that he did. And that was a short notice opponent, by the way. Weidman was not a short notice opponent. I don't know which is more embarrassing. Maybe, I guess, in hindsight, it's the Silva loss because he got knocked out because he was showboating, but I guess we'll keep it as Anderson Silva's number 1, but it's debatable. I could see people saying Izzy's the number 1. I wouldn't mind that. But I think based off of the dominance and based off of the amount of wins that he has and the title defenses and stuff like that, I'll put him as number 1 and Izzy at number 2. And because they both have like the same amount of champions beaten in their records, like around 2 or 3 champions. So moving on, light heavyweight, we got number 1, John Jones. Not even in debate. Number 2, Alex Pereira. Number 3, DC. Some people are not gonna like the fact that, or they're not going to agree that DC is below Pereira, but Pereira beat 4 world champions at light heavy. I think DC has beaten 0, if I'm not mistaken. He beat Rumble Johnson. He beat Gustafsson. He beat Silva, who was a short notice opponent moving up a weight class. But then it's like, Pereira has beaten 4 world champions. I understand that they didn't have a single title defense, but they're still world champions. Especially after he just got slept by Izzy, he moved up to 205. People were not confident that he was going to be successful. He beat Blachowicz, beat Prohaska, handed him his first ever loss in the UFC, and became a champion. Then defended it against Jamal Hill, and then Prohaska again, and then Roundtree, who's not a champion. And then he lost to Ankalaev, but then avenged the loss, round 1 knockout. I feel like that's a much better run and a much better, I guess, set of wins than DC had when he was the champion at light heavyweight. And he did it in such a short period of time too, So that's why I personally think that Pereira is above DC, and John Jones, not even a debate. He had like a million title defenses. Although, if you include the failed PED tests and whatnot, and the controversy with the Gustafsson rematch and him losing to Dominic Reyes and all that kind of stuff, you may not even have him on the list, but for the sake of this video, I'll have him on this list. I cannot, it will just look wrong if I have Pereira as number 1. It will just look wrong. And then I have like Gustafsson or some shit at number 3, But yeah, John Jones number 1, Pereira number 2, DC number 3. And then finally, we have heavyweight, Stipe Miocic number 1, Francis Ngannou number 2, and Cain Velasquez number 3. Stipe, he's just the greatest. There's just no two way about it. He beat Francis Ngannou. He beat DC twice. He beat so many people, so many legitimate contenders and credible names at heavyweight. Francis Ngannou had the potential to become the GOAT if he didn't leave the UFC. Like, he was knocking down everyone. Jairzinho Rosenstrike, Curtis Blades, Cain Velasquez, Junior Dos Santos. Like, he was knocking down everybody. And he also beat Cyril Gane, which if Cyril Gane beats Pereira on the White House card this June, that will look good on his resume, right? I know John Jones walked through him in the first round, but still. Ngannou had the potential. Had he just stayed in the UFC, he could have been the GOAT, because Stipe was essentially gone. After he had knocked him out in the rematch, he was just done. He didn't come back up until 2024 to fight John Jones, right? So he was not motivated to come back to fight anyone else, you know? But I'm not sure if he would have beaten Tom Aspinall, though. And then we have Cain Velasquez. I couldn't really find anyone else at heavyweight. I mean, there is someone like Junior Dos Santos, possibly, but I think Cain Velasquez is just a bit greater, right? Like, you're looking at his resume. You have Antonio Nogueira, Brock Lesnar. He won the heavyweight championship over Brock Lesnar. You have Antonio Silva, JDS, both of them twice. And he defended his belt multiple times. So it's like, he didn't exactly have a long career in the sport or in the UFC, but he did do good, right? Or actually, no, he's been fighting. Oh, he fought since 2008. Okay, never mind. That's like 11 years. His last fight was against Ngannou, which was in 2019. He got knocked out. Obviously, he was out of his prime. And his first fight was in 2008. But I think he is the third greatest heavyweight. I think Tom Aspinall could definitely surpass him easily if he could just come back and beat Cyril Gane. I think that's or I guess the winner of Pereira Gane, that is. If he just beats the winner of Pereira Gane, Tom Aspinall could just go on a roll and just start wiping out everyone. Josh Hoke at free title defense. I don't care about the hype. You know, people are just, they're hyping him up way too much because of his antics and his personality. But listen, Josh Hoke would get destroyed. I don't care. If you fight Tom Aspinall the way you fought Curtis Blades, you're getting chinned. Simple. And there's just nobody else that would present any threat to Tom Aspinall other than Gane and Pereira. But we'll see what happens in that fight. But let me know what you guys think about this list. If it's good, what would you change about it? And I guess that's it. See ya.